So to start with this conversation, my first question is I every time tell the guest to introduce themselves so that people can know something about you and your profession.
Okay, great. So I'm Tanvi, and hi everyone who's on this live. I'm Tanvi. I was born and brought up in New Delhi, India, and I
Okay.
moved to Toronto when I was 18 to come here study in university. I finished my bachelor's of commerce here, and then I worked with KPMG for as an auditor for 3 years. Finished my chartered accountancy.
Okay.
And somewhere between all of this, I found my passion for acting and I found my passion for dance. And recently I decided to pursue it professionally. So I left my job at KPMG. Now I'm a chartered accountant, professional actor, and a dancer. I
So,
literally summarized my life in 1 minute, which is great.
so how basically your journey started into this field?
So, in terms of dance, I have always been a dancer since I was 10. So, since I remember my childhood, which is when I was 10, I was always a dancer. And kudos to my mom because she encouraged me to go to these classes regardless of like how stressful school was or how managing everything else. She always said, she always pushed me to go for these classes. So, I was a dancer since I was 10 years old, but I think every dancer will relate with me on this. I always wanted to open my own dance studio and teach. But it's such an idea that in your head it always feels like it's something you will do later in life. It's something, you have
Okay.
to do a capital investment, you have to get a studio, you have to do all the finances on
Right.
the side. And then before you start teaching, there's so much you have to do. So it's always in the back of my head for a dancer, but for me, it became easier when the pandemic happened because I realized now I didn't have to do all of that. I just had to open my screen
Right.
and get people on Zoom and dance. So the journey towards ViDance was a long one, but in terms of starting it, it was a very clear decision. It was something that I knew was going to be easy, opening up Zoom, getting people. So dance as a passion was always there, but as a profession, I think it happened during the pandemic. Yeah.
So at the time of pandemic, people were facing various issues, like some of the businesses were getting shut and everything. So
Mhm.
did you have some second thought as well in your mind that should I go with it or not?
Yeah, so I think the decision to almost like quit my full-time job or start acting or start dancing, I think it all of that kind of answers your question about doubt, right? Like
Right.
quitting certainty or quitting a
Right.
stable job
Exactly.
during COVID. Like nobody wants to do that. People are getting
Obviously.
laid off. So for me to like take that conscious decision wasn't overnight. It was not something I just decided during the pandemic. It took a lot of years to get here, to get to this decision. But I think the main thing that was very clear in my head was that what I wanted for the rest of my
Mhm.
life. And
Okay.
to get where what you want, I think what the process I went through was like deciding what I don't want in life. And I think I call that like decluttering.
Okay.
That it's very important to understand what you don't want in life to kind of arrive on what you eventually want. And I use
Right.
this very funny analogy of like a closet. Like I think girls will relate to this. You're always shopping and you don't even know what's in your closet or what you really want. And suddenly your mom is like declutter the closet and you start throwing all these things you don't want until you realize and you start finding things that you really value, right? And
Right.
I think that applies to a lot of things. So I think that happened to me after university when I started deciding or started decluttering and saying I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, and
Right.
eventually landed on I really want to dance, I really want my own studio.
Mhm.
I really want to add value to already what's there in the world. And when you
Right.
kind of go through that process, it becomes easier and easier, and you finally realize that if this is exactly what you want for the rest of your life, then COVID or no COVID, sustainability or no sustainability, it you want to do this and you make it happen.
Right.
So I think that was the process to get to that.
So, like when you started this dance class, like I can say there are basically two type of dance classes nowadays. Earlier, it was only about one thing is that you rent or you buy something a studio. You start your studio and you start your dance class from there. Now we can
Yeah.
say now you have an online platform, you buy a laptop, you start Zoom, and you can have your dance class over there. So
Yeah.
you're one of those few people who have experienced the second dance form, we can say. So
Yeah.
how has your experiences been, and what kind of changes do you feel that in both of them are there?
Um, Physical studio has a lot of advantages in terms of, I think, being able to teach someone who's right next to you versus
Hmm.
someone who's on the screen. It's a different experience. So it's
Right.
much easier when you have the person with you. It's much easier to develop a connection with the customer, with your client when they're right here, especially with wedding season, right? Like wedding choreographies. It was so
Right.
much fun when you went into someone's house and taught them
Yeah.
versus on Zoom. So there are advantages to that, but I think the biggest disadvantage was that, or the biggest advantage to online studio for me was that I can reach these people. Like I wouldn't have ever reached people even in Bombay, sitting in Delhi, right? Like
Obviously.
doing, like I remember when I used to teach in different companies in Delhi. Like I taught with Shamuk Davar, I taught with Ashley Lobo. And I remember that, like when wedding season used to hit, and if someone was in Bombay, you would like decline the client because it's like, oh, it's too far, I cannot travel there to teach you. And
Right.
now it's like I got a client for a wedding from like New York, and she messages me that she's going to get married. So I'm like, okay, we'll hop onto Zoom and I'll teach you choreographies. Like I think online studio now, especially because of the pandemic, it's really helping me to reach people, which you cannot with a physical studio. And another
Right.
thing is capital expenditure, right? From like a business
Right.
point of view,
Obviously.
it's huge. It's huge, and a lot of people are facing studio closures, and they cannot even foresee when they will be able to start it again. So
Right.
I think it's a balanced discussion in terms of pros and cons to both, but I think the new reality for dance with an online studio is going to be really great in terms of reaching different kinds of people. Yeah.
Exactly. So, what kind of challenges have you faced in this thing, in online studio, basically?
I think one major challenge that I faced was so sometimes like when you're trying to teach someone a step and you're mirroring, so if I'm going to say right, it's going to be your left,
Obviously.
right?
Yeah.
And that was always a challenge when you're learning off of YouTube. So that's one thing that I all the time, like now I'm quite good with like calling my right left and my left right. But that's one thing I've figured, that people also get frustrated sometimes, right? Like when they try to
Yes. Yes.
learn that. So I came up with another idea, and the way I solved that was like I am going to change my right and left, right? So when
Okay.
I'm teaching a choreography, I'm going to teach it as if this is left and this
Yeah.
is right. And it's
Right.
very important for me to do that because customers, whoever comes on Zoom, should be able to comfortably learn something without thinking twice about it.
Obviously. Yes.
So that was one of the challenges. Another challenge I faced, which was not for a long time, it was initially in the first 2 months, I didn't realize how big this can be. And even now, I think I underestimated. Like I said, sometimes I thought it's going to be over if the pandemic is over.
Right.
But initially, I always thought that, okay, I'm just going to do it for this people in Delhi, because it's an Indian Standard Time. My classes are based on Indian Standard Time. Only my
Yeah.
friends are going to come from Delhi. So I didn't anticipate where it could reach because it's a virtual studio and
Right.
it's free,
Yeah.
right? So two major points in terms of convenience for the customer, right? And the more convenient to make your service, the more customers are going to join. My registration process is literally just DMing me on Instagram. That's all. So if I didn't realize how big it can be. So as soon as it exploded to 200 people, it was a big challenge for me to manage resources, right? So now I
Okay.
needed more batches. There were more wedding choreographies coming in. There were private lessons coming in. I had corporate events coming in, like corporations reached out for like mental health, wellness activities. And I
Right.
realized that that's a big challenge when you don't anticipate the growth of your company.
Yeah.
And for me, I think the way I handled that was that I realized I needed a team. And I anticipated it way before it exploded. So I had like I got more instructors on board. I started training people to become instructors. I started
Okay.
having someone to help me with social media. So anticipated the challenge before it happened, but I think
Right.
that was a big one with virtual world now, that you can actually make it explode to a point that you might not be able to handle it. So I think that's another disadvantage if you want to look at it like that. Yeah.
So basically, you're providing this dance class for free, right? So
Yeah.
how are you able to generate your revenue from this?
Right. So I think that's a very good question. And that's something, when I started, I didn't realize I'm going to make this a brand or a company. But when I eventually started, it was something which was a full-time commitment after quitting my job. I realized that there were two ways of I could generate my revenue, which was private lessons. So if someone has like wedding choreographies or events, or a lot of people just want to learn a choreography in more detail. So they're like, I don't want to do a group class. I just want a private lesson.
Okay.
So that was one service that I started offering. Another thing was corporate events. So corporations started reaching out with mental health and the importance of mental health growing so much in the world today. And with COVID, everybody working from home, it's a big issue now. So
Obviously.
for corporations to set aside, so even from KPMG, I know that we set aside some amount of money towards wellness activities. But with COVID, we can't really physically do them at the office anymore. So now people are contacting these studios who will do interactive activities with people on the Zoom. So I'm being contacted for that. So I think I found my streams of revenue as I started my brand. I learned a lot as I went along, as I did a lot of group classes, and I was out there, and people started coming to me with their orders. I realized that is something I could do. So again, that was another flexibility that I had, and I was like, okay, I can add this as a service. Oh, okay, I can add this, and then suddenly I had all this revenue coming in, and I was like, okay, this is great. Like, I don't have to make these group classes, don't have to price them at any point now because I have two streams of revenue.
Yeah, like so opportunities opened up for you.
Yeah.
So basically, if someone is going to looking to start any new dance class of their own, so can you guide something to them that how can they proceed with your experience?
I have a lot of advice. So I think it doesn't not just for dance studio. I think anybody wanting to do something new, anybody trying to open or put a product out there or put a service out there during this time, I would say the first thing I learned was there's never a right time to start. Like, don't wait that, when the pandemic is going to be over, or, there's so much going on right now. I'm just going to wait when, I don't have this. I think it's never the right time to start. Start whenever, start wherever. Especially now with everything virtual, you can literally start wherever. So that would be my first advice. Second would be, don't try to be different. I always had that where, how can I make this service different? Everybody is a dancer right now. Everybody has dance studios. How am I going to be different? I think don't focus on trying to be different. Focus on why you're doing it. That should be very clear. Also, be yourself. Like I said, everybody's unique in their own ways. Doesn't matter if you're providing the same service that's out there. As long as you are unique and you're doing it genuinely, clients see through that, customers see through that, and they connect with you. I have a lot of people who are like, they know so many choreographers, but they'll go to a certain person because they connect with them personally, right? And that personal connection comes because you're unique, not because your service is different. So that's another thing. Don't try to be different, because if you're truthful to what you're doing out there and truly believe in it, people see through that, right? And I think that's another thing. Lastly, I would say it is, in terms of connections, I have heard this a lot where people start a new business or start a new company and they're like, I need to make connections, right? I need to make a network. I need to reach out to the head of this industry, and it's a big thing for people to know people in the industry. And what I've realized, especially watching my dad who has a great business, and I watched him while I was growing up, that he knew anyone I knew, he knew that person. If I was going to a dance class, he knew someone there. He knew a lot of people. And I realized that now that I'm doing my own business, I realize that every connection in your life is so important. It doesn't matter if that person is from your industry. You don't even know if tomorrow your friend who's a marketing professional might be. Okay. So I was just saying, connections in terms of, it doesn't have to be in your industry, or it doesn't have to be someone big. Every connection is important. Everybody you know today, start in your family, start in your friends. and give them importance. It's not necessary to know the head of, or like right now, if I'm opening a dance studio, I'm not going there out there looking for dance companies and trying to be friends with people who made it big. I started with my own friends. Like when I started ViDance, I reached out to a friend who was already running a business, and I said, help me out. How do you start? How do you put it out there on Instagram? Then I had another friend who, is a design specialist. I'm like, oh, how do I make this post on social media? And, I wasn't scared to let people know that I don't know everything. And it's okay to not know everything. So that's my third advice. Like, don't put it on your head that I'm going to run this. I'm going to be one woman army and I'm going to like run this whole show. It's okay to go to people, reach out and say, I need help with this.
Right.
It's very important. And I think that's one thing I've done in whatever field I was, that I never did anything alone. And I'm very proud of that. That, I reached out for help and I was very proud to say that I don't know everything and I would love to learn. So that's the third.
Yeah. Basically, that's so true. That networking is very important in case of any business profession. Not only in business, if you're doing any profession, networking is really important. You never know what can help you at any stage of time. So basically, you are handling two different professions at the same time. So how are you able to do your time management?
I think time management was really hard when I was doing my full-time job. I think that was the time when I was doing three things. I was doing ViDance, I was acting, and I was a chartered accountant. And I think that was the time which was the hardest because I was working 14 to 16 hours a day with KPMG. And then I would randomly have an audition and I would like rush there. And then, then pandemic happened and I started doing ViDance. So the way I started handling my time was I started realizing that I have limited time in a day, which was a very big realization much later in life. That, like you think you have the entire day and you'll figure things out, but understanding to use your time wisely came much later to me. And I realized that not everything requires an hour. Like I used to prioritize my day, like, okay, 1 hour of this, 1 hour of that. And I realized like not everything requires one same amount of time. Second, everything doesn't require a set amount of time. So I started using my time very wisely. If I was working on ViDance, even though I have so much fun like choreographing stuff, I wouldn't give it more time than required. I would move on to my acting thing. If I was working on like a specific scene for my acting class and I knew that I had nailed it, I don't want to go on working too much on it because I gave 1 hour for this on my day. So I think using your time wisely and understanding you don't have enough of it really works. And then second thing is very basic with a lot of people, that having that discipline. I think like being disciplined in terms of sticking, like a lot of people make a plan that tomorrow I'm going to do this, this and this. And then you wake up late and then you're like, okay, it's fine. I'll push it. I'll stay later at night or I'll do it at night. But having that discipline and being your own teacher is really important. Like telling you, like I live alone and I've been living alone for a long time. So it's very important for me to tell myself to wake up or tell myself to like get on and do this. So discipline was very important for me. Yeah.
So true. So like also there is one question that fascinates me a lot about any creative profession, that how do you manage to keep up with your productivity and creativity? Because that's really important in your field.
Yeah, I think I think for me, productivity is obviously one thing that goes with time management. So being productive goes hand in hand with discipline for me. That if I'm going to be disciplined throughout the day and if I planned to do X number of things throughout the day, I am going to be productive. So for me, it goes hand in hand with time management. So I'm not going to talk a lot about productivity, but in terms of like managing your creativity and your maintaining your craft and honing your skills, I think that for me was very important because I realized that even if I know dance since I was 10 years old, or even if I know acting because I've done 4 years of training, it's very important to keep honing them. Your skills actually, like, there's so much going on in acting. There's so many new methods coming up. Literally so much out there on the internet that it's hard to keep up after a certain point. So I think for me, one, being a constant student is very important if you're an artist. Be a constant learner. Don't be scared, like I said, to open yourself to new things. So sometimes it gets very rigid, especially as an actor, that, this is my way of acting. And these are the things I do. These are the tools I use. This is my method of acting. And I'm only going to do this. And it's very hard to break that rigidness. So being very flexible and being an open learner. You learn from students in class. Like when I go to an acting class, I see other people perform. I reach out to them and I'm like, oh, how did you do this scene? Or what goes on your head when you're attacking this dialogue? Okay. So being a constant student is very important in life. Like you can never master anything. You can never be, I could be a dance choreographer, but I know there are so many people who dance better than me, who can teach better than me. So just thinking that you've arrived as an artist is the worst thing you can do. Even if you're the most successful actor or dancer, you have to be a student first. So so that is one thing I think really works when I am trying to maintain my skills.
So, there is one thing I felt that I should ask people, which I have not been asking them. Like if you would like to share any one experience or story which has made you learn something and which has helped you to live your life better today. Any one experience or story?
One experience or story. I don't think I'll be able to give you like one specific life-changing experience. I don't think I've found that yet. But I think one thing I really want to talk about, my whole journey from being a chartered accountant to a professional actor. And I think that journey having a plan B. So I remember, or maybe this could be a short story, but I remember my dad really pushed me, like both my parents, like they were like, oh, do your chartered accountancy and then do whatever you want, then just leave your job and then do whatever you want. And I kept feeling like, why do I need to have a backup when I know I'm going to be an actor? Why am I not studying that? Why am I not putting my time towards that? And they kept saying, no, you should have a backup just in case you fail in plan A. And everybody says that, right? Like you should always have a plan. And I think for me, once I quit my full-time job and I got my designation, I understood what that truly meant, but from a different perspective. Like I realized that the only reason I could quit my job without any fear, without thinking that, oh my God, it's COVID and I'm leaving a full-time job, it's so courageous. Like a lot of people told me that. And I said, why is it so easy for me to do it? And I realized it was because I had a backup. It's because I had a plan B. So I don't think people should eventually tell everyone that, oh, if you fail in plan A, then you have plan B. I think the only reason you will succeed in plan A is because you have a plan B. And I think plan B is the sole reason to give you that confidence to go and succeed in your plan A. So it's just a different way of looking at it. Like I look at it more positively, that I spent all this time creating this backup for me, not only to fail in my plan A, but only because I have the confidence to succeed in plan A.
Yeah, to succeed with plan A. Yes.
Yeah, so I think that has really changed my perspective on, I haven't wasted any time. I didn't waste 4 years studying or working with that in that field. So yeah.